we're moving on. Thank you. We're moving on to a guest that is with us today from afar. And it's my distinct honor to introduce to you Jesper Karrbrink, who is the CEO of Immense Group. And Jesper is here today to discuss with us whether regulated iGaming is a broken system or not, maybe. Jesper, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Hi there, everyone. Sorry I can't join you in real life, and sorry to be in your face like this. I can see myself on this big screen.
But we have to up your volume a little bit. So 1 second. Yes. Yeah, I think.
Okay, this better? Perfect. Yeah, sorry I could not join you in real life, and sorry to be in your face like this. I can see myself on this big screen. But nice to meet you anyway, and thanks for letting me connect to you this way. For you who don't know me, I've been in this industry for 20 years now. Started as CEO for Svenska Spel and then Mr. Green, and now Immense Group AB, the holding company of Immense Malta, formerly known as the Video Slots Group. And I also have had two handful of board and advisory roles. But I will not bore you with history. I will talk about the single most important topic for our industry, channelization, and why I think the system is broken. And it sounds like you have talked a lot about this today, and I will probably repeat some of the points already raised by Pontus and others. But from my view, today, channelization seems to be a side issue in gambling regulation, while channelization should be the foundation of gambling regulation. Because only when players are inside the regulated system can we protect them. Only then can we verify identity, monitor risky behavior, enforce self-exclusion. Only then can we apply duty of care, and only then can regulators supervise operators, impose sanctions, and the government collect tax. If player leaves, or when players leave the regulated market, I would say all of those tools disappear. So the key question is not whether we need regulation, we do. The real question is, how do we build a regulated market that players actually choose? And from Josh's numbers, we can clearly see that there's a lot of players not choosing the regulated market. And from my point of view, and Josh, sorry to say, but no Nordic market has solved channelization. The Nordic markets are often seen as well-regulated, high-trust markets, and in many ways they are, but we also need to be honest. No Nordic market, not even Sweden and Denmark, I would say not even Denmark, has perfectly channelization today. And this is especially true in online casino. That matters because the issue is not only lost tax revenues and unfair competition, because it is unfair competition, but the real problem is that players move away from the environment where protection exists. A player with a licensed operator is inside a system of rules. A player with an unlicensed operator is often protected only by that operator's own standards. And we know how high they are. So, channelization is player protection. In the debate, channelization and player protection are often treated as two separate topics. I think this is wrong. Channelization is the first layer of player protection. We cannot protect players we cannot reach. And this is why Spelpaus in Sweden is such an important example. Spelpaus, I would say, is perhaps one of the best things with the Swedish regulation. It's national, it's clear, it's simple. And if a player self-excludes, all of us, all licensed Swedish operators must block that player. But Spelpaus also shows the limit of regulation because Spelpaus only works inside the licensed market. When a self-excluded player moves to an unlicensed site, the protection no longer follows that player. Spelfriheten, it's a Swedish organization helping problem gamblers, has reported that 9 out of 10 seeking help that had self-exclude through Spelpaus still continued gambling on unlicensed sites. 9 out of 10. And this is why I mean the system is broken. The point is not that Spelpaus is a bad tool. No, the point is opposite. Spelpaus is a really good tool, but even a good tool fails if the player leaves the regulated environment. And that is the core of the problem. There's another assumption we need to challenge as an industry. The assumption that more products and higher availability and more marketing automatically lead to more problem gambling. It sounds intuitive. I mean, for everyone, this seems like the truth. But the data from Folkhälsomyndigheten in Sweden does not support such a simple conclusion. Ola Nevander's report for BOS highlights an important point. Since the late 1990s, gambling has exploded. Online gambling grow, product shows grow, marketing grow, accessibility grow, the market became digital. We're talking from scratch cards, lotto, tipset, some Jack Vegas machines, to everyone having access to hundreds of casinos basically in our back pockets 24/7. It's a huge difference. And yet, Swedish prevalence studies have not shown a corresponding explosion in problem gambling. On the contrary, problem gambling has decreased over time from around 2% in the late 1990s to around 1.3% in the 2022 measurements. And this is statistically verified. You can all, and you should, if you haven't, access the report from BOS webpage. So the digital gambling explosion did not lead to an explosion in problem gambling. Why? Well, I think, if you look at this, digital gambling allows us and the players to track behavior, identify risk, set limits, and we as operators can intervene and build responsible gambling tools in a way that was impossible or is impossible in an anonymous cash-based environment. And long before today's regulation, serious operators with Svenska Spel in the lead, followed by many private operators, began building responsible gambling functions in their platforms. And this is a crucial lesson. Digital gambling is the best opportunity we have for effective player protection. But again, only if the player stays inside the regulated environment. And this leads to the perhaps uncomfortable but necessary conclusion. We, as an industry, must get policymakers to understand that the regulated market have to be attractive enough for players to choose it. Because how much payment blocking and IP blocking we introduce, players and black market sites will always find way to meet. And this should not be kind of interpreted as no rules. It doesn't mean weak protection. It means designing regulation that maximizes both channelization and player protection. Because as we see today, if the gap between licensed and unlicensed operators becomes too large, players will move. And the players most likely to move are, of course, the players we most need to protect. Remember the 9 out of 10? And this is why we need a more balanced discussion on bonuses, on product range, on payments, perhaps even on crypto, on advertising, and on tax. And note, none of these are arguments for a careless market. They are all arguments for a more effective market. The Nevander report reminds us that more availability, more aggressive games, more marketing does not automatically mean more harm. So we should not assume that the more competitive license market will automatically increase problem gambling either. I think it actually will be the opposite, especially if it's combined with the stronger, more granular and more data-driven player protection. So attractiveness cannot stand alone. If the first pillar is an attractive regulated market, the second pillar must be better player protection. And here we need to move beyond blunt tools. I've thought, and I've spent so much time and discussed these things for the last 20 years, future player protection must become more granular, more behavioral, and more data-driven. The next generation of regulation should give operators the ability to handle all players, from risk players to recreational players. In today's regulation, and this is a fact, we risk our license if we don't block problem gamblers fast enough. Even though we know they just move elsewhere, and eventually they will end up in the black market. The solution for this is a regulation based on common and unified risk indicators as well as preventive actions. A system where low-risk players should not face unnecessary friction. A system where rising risk and high-risk players should be registered across all operators in an ununified system and receive early interventions based on science. In Sweden, this could be an extension of Spelstop, and in Denmark, it could be part of Rufus. This is where the regulated digital market has its greatest potential. Being attractive enough to satisfy all players and smart enough to help as many problem players as possible. But again, it only works if the player is inside the system. And for this, the regulated market must be attractive enough. In Sweden and elsewhere, we often talk about 90% channelization as a target. I understand why, it sounds realistic, but I believe the target should be 100%. Not because we probably ever reach exactly 100%, but because the target shapes the policy. This is like a budget. You don't do a budget and say we're going to reach 90%. You go with the budget and you go for 100%. If we aim for 90, we are effectively accepting that 1 out of 10 players or 1 out of 10 gambling euros may remain outside the system. So the ambition should be clear. Every player should be inside the regulated system. Every player should be covered by consumer protection. Every operator targeting Nordic players should be licensed, supervised, and taxed. If we aim for 100, perhaps we reach 90. If we aim for 90, as we do now, we apparently end up at 80 or 70 or even lower than that, lower than that,
Like
listening to the H2 numbers.
Here.
Yes.
We're also running out of time, but the picture was a bit jittery.
Okay.
And
Sorry.
The connection seems to be a bit jittery. So, and when we're also running out of time, it'd be fair to say, and it was said already before, that channelization is consumer protection, and no consumer protection exists without channelization. I mean, it should be at the center of everything we do, and it should also be at the center of what politicians do to come up with new regulations. Would you agree?
Yeah, I would say that the later is the most important. Policymakers need to understand that channelization has to be key, basically the key goal of the regulation. I mean, it's such a simple measure to have, and it's such a simple thing to understand. If we can't have the players, we can't protect them. And the protection, since this is in a digital environment, we know who they are, we know what they spend, we know how they play. We can help them at the point of origin. We can help them at where they are when they gamble. That's the only way to do it.
Yeah, agreed. And just as a closing remark, Jesper, you mentioned the Navander study, which was done in, how do you say that, asked for or ordered by Bose. It
Yes.
can be found outside of Bose, am I correct?
Yes, you can find it on the Bose website. And I'm sorry if you didn't hear me clear enough, but my main point here is that policymakers must understand that the regulated market has to be as competitive, as attractive, and being competitive with the unlicensed market. Otherwise, players will always find a way to find the best odds and the best bonuses, etc., etc. And the Ola Nyvander report gives us argument that making the regulated market more attractive will most likely not drive more problematic gamblers. And when we have the gamblers within the system, we can help them. But that also needs a new and more sharp regulation. And I think it has to be a unified system where the players are treated the same way based on the players' data, not on each operator's data.
Agreed. Thank you very much for your contribution to this afternoon. And from Copenhagen, all the best and have a perfect midsummer.
Thank you. The same. Bye.